Hello and welcome to Practically Effective. This is a podcast by Will and I about effects, props and stunts in various films. And today, for episode 13, we are discussing Apollo 13.
Yes.
I know, Will, you're very excited for this.
Yeah.
We should first establish with mild exposition that you're a big fan of
I am. I'm wearing an Apollo 13 t-shirt today.
Yes, you are. And it will help me remember the names of the
astronauts. It'll help Joe
astronauts.
remember the names of the astronauts because they're printed on my shirt.
We should get you a little mirror in case you need to remember.
No, I have many books on the topic.
Yeah, Will has brought a small library to podcast with us today. Do you want to give people the titles and some recommended reading before we
I had the Apollo 13 Heinz manual.
Yep.
I think it was written by one of the mission controllers, or...
Wait, hang on, it's Heinz manual, isn't
Heinz, whatever.
Heinz is beans.
Heinz, they make beans. They also make books. Also, I have the Saturn V flight manual, which is the same as the ones the astronauts would have had. It's very technical. But
lots of diagrams.
if you're a massive nerd, a massive space nerd, it's very good. Also, Gene Kranz's autobiography,
Yep.
who was one of the flight directors. He has many interesting things to say. He was involved from the beginning. He basically invented mission control. He did many things.
And the title is Failure is Not an Option.
Failure is not an option, yeah. He never actually, in the film, that's like his most famous line,
Yeah.
but he never actually said it in real life.
But it's the title of his
He liked it, so he said that he wished he had said it, and so he made it the title of his autobiography.
which is pretty great.
And there's also Jim Lovell. It's not really Jim Lovell's autobiography, but Jim Lovell wrote a book about Apollo 13,
Yeah.
which the film draws heavily from.
Oh, there you are.
And the book is just called Apollo 13 as well. So
Perfect. Apparently
There's also that.
people were bidding for the movie rights to the book
Yes.
before he'd even started writing
well,
it.
like, he'd written like the first chapter apparently, and he sent the first chapter into like the publishers, and then people started buying the film rights
Yeah.
for it just based off that,
Which is pretty cool.
which is encouraging. Yeah.
Same thing happened for Jurassic Park, I think.
Mm.
But obviously, there are many differences between those two films.
One has dinosaurs in it.
Going to space. And the other,
Combine the two films, send dinosaurs to the moon.
but something goes horribly
Goes
wrong.
terribly. The dinosaurs escape from their cages.
Into space. And now they're just space.
Now they
dinosaurs.
don't have any oxygen anymore for some reason.
But conveniently, at the same time, the Apollo 13 astronauts are flying past and their oxygen tank exploded, giving the dinosaurs oxygen.
Good.
Then they're just ravaged by dinosaurs. Can they get them home? No,
No,
they're
they're
eaten by
already dead.
dinosaurs. I would love to see a mashup of the T-Rex paddock escape where he rips up the car with like Apollo 13, the astronauts in a capsule being attacked.
Dinosaurs just attacking the capsule.
Yeah. They land, but instead of splashing down into the ocean, they land in Jurassic Park.
Immediately. Imagine that. I'd be like really excited, like really relieved.
Yeah.
You've just had a really disastrous mission, you got home. And then you got attacked by dinosaurs and killed.
But then he calls back to mission control and they like get a box full of supplies and like, gentlemen, this is what they have. These are make them a dinosaur trap out of only these supplies. Okay, so how should we start? We always don't know how to start. If you have any suggestions for how we should start these podcasts, please tell us.
Yeah. We normally kind of go through the film.
Yeah, but I feel like this is one where we're going to jump around more.
Yeah. Well, we can start off like that at least.
Give it a go. All right.
See where it goes.
We open with Tom Hanks. And
Yeah.
we watch Neil Armstrong.
We're watching the Apollo 11
Yeah.
landing, yeah.
So I read somewhere that Ron Howard didn't use any mission footage.
That's right, yeah.
It was all original
They
stuff.
didn't use any of the stock footage. They thought about it, but they decided not to. They decided to make their own stuff.
Does that mean that when they're watching Neil Armstrong land on the moon, was that the original footage?
Oh, I think that's the original footage.
Okay.
But for the Apollo 13, for the launch
Yeah,
of Apollo 13, they didn't use any stock footage.
yeah. I think that's probably the best scene in the movie.
The launch
Yeah.
is it's not a film I can watch with other people because I get very emotional when I'm watching it.
Yeah. I think Ron Howard said that is the sequence he's most proud of.
Yeah.
That Saturn V launch, because the most cinematic thing he's ever done. And
Yeah. Apparently Buzz Aldrin thought it was real footage and asked him like, where did you find that footage, because he'd
Yeah.
never seen it before.
Well, I read something similar, but Jim Lovell, he thought the CGI was so convincing that he thought they'd found like some unseen NASA footage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it is a great film, and it has some fantastic effects.
It does. That entire launch scene was done with models.
Yeah?
Yeah. And the engine ignition was apparently just a fire extinguisher. Yeah. Well, yeah, okay, it was done. The rocket was a model, but like the icing effects and things they CGI'd over the top.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was a mixture.
Yeah.
Cool. I think the greatest compliment you can give a special effects film is that you don't think of it as a special effects film.
Yeah.
And when I watch this, I don't think, wow, look at the amazing effects. I think this is a great film.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well done, Apollo 13. Well done, Ron Howard. So if we're going through in chronological order, then what happens? Jimmy, he shows some people around a rocket.
Shows some people around a rocket.
This would be a rocket.
Yeah, he's showing some reporters.
Yeah.
And it's like some congressman, I don't know, some people around.
Yeah. And someone asks how you pee in space.
Somebody asks how you pee in space.
Does that happen in every space movie?
I think it does quite a lot for some reason.
Yeah.
And then later on they have a scene of them peeing in space.
Yep.
And he says that it's a shame they can't show this on television.
They did have a TV camera.
They did have a TV
They had
camera.
a slot for a show, so he could have just been like, okay, we know what you're all thinking. I'm going to have a pee. Question about that. Is that true? Did they actually broadcast a live show
Yeah.
that
several times
wasn't then picked up by the networks?
I don't know about it being picked up by the networks. So the impression I got was that it was just less than Apollo's 11 and 12.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I think it did get picked up.
Okay.
Because like some people apparently did watch it. It doesn't say anything. I've never read anywhere about it saying nobody watched it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't get. You'd think that'd be something that got mentioned.
Well, they made quite a big deal in the movie if they do this TV broadcast and it's not actually broadcast to the nation and the astronauts don't know.
Yeah.
They think they're talking to everyone in America.
Yeah.
But in reality, everyone's so bored of space travel that none of the TV stations wanted to pick it up. So that's not true.
I've never read it anywhere. I read a couple of times that it was the audience was much less.
Yeah.
But you would think if they were going to say that, they would have then just said it wasn't got picked up by any network. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Then he gets told about Alan Shepard.
Yes,
the
his ear
Apollo-
infection.
Well, that's not quite what happened.
Right.
So Alan Shepard was the first American in space, many years beforehand, in the Mercury program, and he did get an ear infection that meant he couldn't fly anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Then he had an experimental procedure to fix that, and it worked, and he got put back on active duty and assigned to Apollo 13.
Yeah.
But it's not that his ear infection flared up again, it's that NASA decided he needed more simulator time, like he wasn't ready.
Oh, I see, okay.
So they bumped him back, and then everyone moved
So did he go to the moon?
Alan Shepard did, yeah.
Was he the guy that hit the golf ball on the moon?
Yes.
Excellent. I know a thing about the moon. So, Tom Hanks goes to space, but disaster. Ken can't
Mattingly
go-
doesn't have the measles.
I do like how the medical team in this movie are kind of the villain.
They kind of are, yeah. You're right.
So, there's the team of, like, they work incredibly well together. They've been training all this time.
Yeah.
And then it's Ken Mattingly?
Ken Mattingly, yeah.
He's been near someone who had the measles.
Yeah.
So is at a risk of infection.
Yeah.
So he's not allowed to go to space.
Yes.
So they have to get Jack Swigert,
Jack Swigert, yeah. Jack Swigert.
Swaggerlicious astronaut Kevin Bacon,
Yep.
to fill in for him.
Yeah.
And he blows the ship up.
He does. He is the problem.
Houston, we have a problem
It's Jack
on our
Swigert.
ship. And then later on, there's the bit where Jim Lovell, I'm trying to do the proper names.
They've
not
written
that.
on my t-shirt.
Bit where Jim Lovell is like, I'm fed up with everyone in the Western Hemisphere knowing how my kidneys are doing. And he rips up his medical sentences.
And the flight surgeon is enraged by this.
And then later, Ken comes in.
And he's like, I didn't get the measles.
And
And
then
he looks over at him.
And all of them are still there, presumably looking at like blank screens because they took all of their sensors off. Did they actually do that?
I think they did do that, yeah.
Medical
I think they
mutiny.
actually took their sensors off.
Yeah.
But you can't really blame them
No,
for it, to be
I
honest.
don't at all. They really give you a good sense in this movie of what a strain it was on these three people.
Yeah.
Being stuck in a freezing cold capsule, barely any sleep for how many days was it?
Well, it takes 4 days to get there and 4 days back, so about 8 days.
Yeah.
Like 7 or 8 days, I'm not quite sure exactly.
More time than you'd want to be
More
stuck
time
in.
than you'd want to be stuck in something that's full.
Yeah, with friggin' Jack Swigert.
Jack Swigert.
I'm sure he's a lovely man. But for the purposes of this episode, we're just going to insult him furiously.
Well, so before we start insulting him,
Yeah.
I should get some good words about him.
Come on.
So, like, in the film, he's kind of portrayed as like, not like incompetent, but
No.
they kind of make out a bit like he's like not really trusted or like he doesn't quite know what he's doing.
It's more, he didn't seem to have as much experience as Ken.
Right, but the thing is, Jack Swigert actually wrote the emergency procedures for the command module. So, like, he actually knows the command module really, really well.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the best guys to have in that situation.
But I suppose the main problem is that it's those three who've trained together,
Yeah.
and it's one of them being removed and someone else put
Yeah.
in. It's not that he's worse.
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
that
yeah. I
They
get
haven't
that.
worked together.
I get that, yeah.
Yeah,
And that whole sort of, I guess, like, animosity between them,
yeah.
that was overdone in the film. If you were going to react that way, you're not the kind of person that would be selected to be an astronaut.
Yeah,
You're-
'cause
yeah.
Jack basically, Houston's like do some regular stuff, stir the oxygen tanks, and he does.
Yeah.
And then that's when the disaster happens.
And then you'll
there's-
blame him for some reason.
Yeah, well,
Or,
it's more Fred, isn't it?
Fred Hayes kind of,
Yeah, he's
blames
like,
him,
Jack,
yeah.
you
Jack,
you
you're
jerk.
blowing up the ship.
What have you done? And Jim Lovell's like, guys, come on.
Just
Calm
calm
down.
down.
Yeah, there's a good old shout at both of them, but mainly at Jack.
Yeah.
And then, and they get back to it.
Yeah.
But no, I completely agree that you wouldn't put someone who's real grumpy up in a little metal tube, would you? Where were we?
Oh, where were we?
Oh, Jack
yes.
Swigert.
Jack Swigert had just got assigned to the crew. Oh, no, we've skipped a little bit.
He's also a bit of a ladies' man.
He's a bit of a lady.
We're
man.
introduced to him and he's doing innuendos, isn't he?
Yes, yes. The first time we see him, he's making an analogy between docking the command module and the lunar module.
But also, this movie has a lot of exposition. And some of it's very clever and some of it isn't. But that's a really clever bit of exposition. Because later on you see him do it. And
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like,
This
now
is
you
what he's
understand
talking
what
about.
he's
Yeah,
supposed
yeah,
to be
yeah.
doing. It's
Yeah.
really good. But there is a lot of, the astronauts are in the space station and they are running out of oxygen.
That's
But
called
now-
a news report.
They have too much carbon dioxide. There's a guy, right?
Yeah.
It's like 3 times we see these 2 reporters talking to each other.
Yeah.
And one of them is always doing the talking.
Yeah.
So there's one actor there who just sat there and nodded
Nodded a bit.
at another guy, and that was his job.
We've missed the bit about Jim Lovell explaining to his family about space. And then he talks to his son.
Oh, he does,
And says the door broke.
Yes.
on Apollo
That's
1.
another, like a major plot point. His wife is really worried about him going to space.
Yeah.
Even though he's an astronaut.
That's his job, and he's done it 3
Yeah.
times before.
And apparently they saw, like, the real Jim Lovell and his real wife saw, not his pretend wife, not his mistress, his real wife. They went and saw a movie called Marooned, like 3
Right.
months before, and it's about an Apollo mission, and they get marooned in space, and one of them at some point gets sucked out of the thing.
God.
And basically, the events of that her nightmare
Yeah, basically
happen in that movie.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons she was terrified about it.
So Tom Hanks
Yeah.
and the actress who plays Jim Lovell's wife, I don't know what her name is.
Kathleen Quinlan?
Sure, we'll go with that. That's
could just made that up.
If that's not her name, it is now. But they apparently lived with the Lovell family for 3 days each.
Really?
And they just went and lived in their house.
Oh, that's really cool.
Presumably they were invited. I don't think they just showed up.
It's contractually obliged, madam. Apparently, the real Marilyn Lovell said that Tom Hanks had Jim Lovell's mannerisms down really well, and it was freaky to watch. But in the movie, he is just a really nice guy.
Mm.
Isn't that what his reputation is?
Yeah, it does strike me as a really
Yeah,
just nice guy.
a nice, level-headed guy. But then I've never seen an astronaut who doesn't seem like a lovely person.
Well, I think it's a big part of it is you have to be personable.
Yeah,
Because you're going to spend, now, several months, if you're on the space station, in very close confines.
yeah.
So you've kind of got to be a nice guy. It's
Yeah.
kind of a requirement.
And also, you'd spend so much more time talking to the media
Yeah.
than you would actually being in space
Yeah.
when it was an Apollo. So you have to, be able to put up with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Jack Swigert doesn't strike
Jack
me as the
Swigert.
type. He just punched a reporter in the face.
Well, if it was a lady reporter, I'd ask them out.
He's just the line of reporters, and he's just punch, bed, punch. I'm sorry, Jack Swigert. Please don't listen to this. I'm sure you're a lovely man.
I hope Jim Lovell does listen to this.
That would be amazing.
That'd be really cool.
Yes, it would.
Email us. We have our email at the end.
Get this to Jim Lovell.
Get this to Jim Lovell.
How old is he now?
He's pretty old.
Yeah.
That's like one of the really sad things. Is like soon everybody who was involved with that will be dead, and we won't have gone back since.
Armstrong died.
Armstrong's dead. He died a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Damn, that's sad.
So,
anyway, after that little...
Jim Lovell was explaining to his son...
We were just contemplating mortality there for a minute.
And now we're going to talk about the Apollo 1 astronauts.
Oh, yeah, we are. So, I remember you telling me a while back that there's like only a few technical problems with this movie.
Yeah.
And one of them is in that scene. So what is the issue?
So in the Apollo 1 scene there, basically there was an electrical short that ignited the oxygen because they used 100% very pressurized oxygen atmospheres.
Right.
So in the scene in the film, it's only a minor thing. But like none of the technical issues are that major, to be honest.
Yeah.
But in the film, the spark comes from some short circuit when one of the astronauts flips a switch.
Yeah.
But actually there was like a piece of wire that was behind like a hatch. Okay. And I think like the hatch being repeatedly opened and closed, the insulation got worn away.
Oh,
and then there was a spark between the wire and the metal door, and that's what ignited the oxygen.
Is that a similar thing to what happens on Apollo 13? Obviously not the hatch, but it was the spark ignited the oxygen.
It is, yeah.
What was the deal there?
Okay, here we go. So that oxygen tank that blew up actually has quite an interesting history.
Okay.
So like, when it was being manufactured in like 1966 or something, like several years beforehand, it failed a significant number of the inspection tests.
Right.
And they had to like re-weld a bunch of it.
Yeah.
And like fix a whole bunch of things. And even then it didn't quite pass all the tests.
Right.
But they just gave it a waiver. Because obviously they test them to withstand pressures way higher than they would ever need to.
Yeah.
So I think even though it still failed a few of them, they let it through anyway.
Yeah.
And then they were going
to... there's a massive hole in the oxygen tank.
No, it's fine.
Get the duct tape, Jim. They'll never know.
And then they were going to use that tank on Apollo 10.
Yeah.
So they installed it in Apollo 10. Mm-hmm. Then they decided there was basically an issue with electromagnetic interference around the oxygen tanks. So they redesigned the oxygen tanks slightly. So they wanted to modify it. And so then they were taking it out of Apollo 10 and they basically dropped it while they were taking it out.
Get the duct tape again, Jim.
Get the duct tape again. So they used a different tank for Apollo 10 and they retested that tank and it seemed to be fine.
Right.
So then they installed it on Apollo 13 and they were running basically some like mock countdowns. Which they do 2 mock countdowns. One with the crew and no fuel, and one with the fuel but no crew.
Yeah. They have to get the crew ready, and they have to get the fuel psyched up.
Yeah. And they filled up this oxygen tank, and it was fine. But then when they came to remove the oxygen, it wouldn't drain. The tank wouldn't drain properly.
Are you going to be psyched up now? I'm going to space!
No, I'm going to space! And the only way they could get it to drain was basically by just heating it up loads and just boiling off all the oxygen.
Yeah.
They had to attach like a ground power unit. It had never been built to hold that voltage. So when they heated it with the ground power, basically it broke the thermostat, I think.
Right.
So instead of being held at, I think, 29 degrees, it went up to like several hundred degrees.
Okay.
But nobody noticed because the thermostat was only read up to 29 degrees. So nobody noticed that this had happened. So it was at this like way, way higher temperature than it should have been.
Right.
And so the thinking is that because of that, so people it's not thought that like dropping the tank or anything damaged it, although you like can't be sure. What people think happened was that being at this higher temperature basically damaged some of the insulation on one of the wires.
Right.
And then when he went to stir the oxygen tank, there was a spark. That wire ignited the insulation for that wire, which then damaged the top of the tank, which let oxygen into that compartment, was then up enough pressure to blow the side off, and that then damaged several fuel cells and things. We'll get onto that probably later. But, yeah. So that oxygen tank has quite a history of being dropped.
We should have got a movie about that oxygen tank. We could get that as a prequel.
Yeah.
Apollo 13, an oxygen tank
The untold story.
Yeah. Get Ron Howard back. Get Tom Hanks as the voice of the oxygen tank.
The real villain of Apollo 13.
Jack Swiggert's just there. He's just the guy who's dropping it. And he's like, don't worry, it'll be fine. It doesn't matter that it failed the tests. He's like, because I won't be on that ship. So, where were we? Chronology.
What I like, though,
Yeah.
is that it goes straight from Jack Swigert being told he's going to the moon.
Yeah.
It goes straight from him right to Ken Mattingly being told he isn't going to the moon.
Do you think if he had not been on Earth to run The Sims that they would
Ken Mattingly?
Yeah.
We'll get onto that, because that's another slight error in the film. Actually,
Okay. So yes, he has to stay behind to get the measles.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
He doesn't.
It's fine. But ironically, Fred does get ill.
He does, yeah.
What was that about?
He gets space sick. Half of astronauts got space sick.
And also, I suppose, horrible conditions, being freezing cold.
Oh, this was before he got freezing cold.
Yeah.
Well, he's pretty cold anyway.
He's ill for most of the movie.
He is.
Yeah.
That's true.
He should have stayed behind.
I think an unpleasant situation is even worse.
Yeah.
He's like, ugh, not only am I probably going to die in space, but I feel awful.
Couldn't I go out feeling at my peak? If only I'd had my Barocca this morning. Yes, so he can't go to space. Everyone else is real mad about it.
Yep.
This movie, the first half hour of this movie is people who think they're not going to space and people who think they're going to space
not
they're
going
not
to
going to space.
Yes.
That sums up the first half hour.
Because first of all, Alan Shepard can't go to space.
Yep.
So that means
So Jim Lovell can go to space.
But now, actually, Ken Mattingly might get the measles, so he's not going to space.
Yep.
But Jack Swigert,
He can go to
he's
space.
going to space.
I'd love to see a re-edit of that. And it's just, they're all like living out their daily lives, and then a guy just bursts in the door, and Gene Kranz just bursts in, he's like, you're going to space! Get your bag!
No, he just goes, you're going to space! And then just leaves, closes the door.
I've got to go and see Alan Shepard.
Nobody knows.
You're not going to space! He's just there in his vest.
Yeah.
What's the deal with his vest?
His wife likes to knit things.
Okay.
That's basically it.
Because that's his character introduction. That's
Yes, his character is introduced as that guy who wears vests knit by his wife.
We're first walked around Mission Control, and everyone's like, oh, the vest is here. They were like, him and his vests.
Him and his vests.
And then he gets the vest, and he's like, thank you, Jim, I was beginning to worry. Not Jim Lovell. Just to clarify, Jim is just a name I always say for some
He
reason.
was at Mission Control and then he rushes off to the rocket. Gets on. Sorry I'm late, guys. I had to give Gene his vest.
Yeah, so they all get dressed up in their space suits.
Yep.
Oh, there's the that good scene where his wife says she's not going to come, and then she turns up.
Yes.
She's like, I'm not going to the space launch.
And then she goes to the space launch.
Gene bursts in, he's like, you're going to the space launch! Yeah. She drops her ring down the shower drain, doesn't she? There's loads of, basically, Jim Lovell's really excited about going to space. And his wife,
not that excited about
she's just, it's like, it cuts back, and she's like, oh, my marriage has fallen off. And then she has a nightmare about him being flung into space.
Yep.
And, yeah. Basically, she's not for it. But she comes to see... Oh, no, what I was going to say about that was apparently that did happen.
That did happen, yeah.
But she got it back. She got the ring back, which she didn't in the movie, or you just didn't see her get it back, because why do you want
But
to
it
watch a
never
woman?
explicitly says, she never got her ring back, you know.
She's one of the news reports. Miss Justin, Marilyn Lovell has dropped her ring
back
down a drain. We are not sure whether she can retrieve it. We will keep you updated as we get information.
Yes.
This just in. It's fine. She got it back.
She got it back, guys.
So yeah, there's that good scene where they're not allowed to go too near each other because
measles.
Yes. So that's nice. I enjoyed how much she got, because that's not an angle you normally get in these movies about how it affects the family, especially in like the disastery movies.
Yeah.
And I love that scene where all the news people are outside her house just after the disaster, and they're like, look, they want to put up equipment on your lawn.
I was like, take it up with my husband.
He's going to be home on Friday. Yeah.
I like the bit where he's talking to Fred Hayes. She's talking to Fred Hayes' wife. Like just after the launch.
Yes.
You know, and she's like, remember, you're happy and proud. And Fred Hayes' wife just goes, we're very happy and proud.
She literally says
Literally just parrots the same
It's great.
thing, yeah.
it really shows how these are just normal people in these extraordinary situations. And yeah, she's not going to be an eloquent speech maker. She's just going to say the same things to all the reporters. But going back to those spacesuits, apparently they cost $30,000 each, and they were like exact replicas and were actually airtight. Yeah, which is really cool.
I remember Jim Lovell, not Jim Lovell, Tom Hanks, who played Jim Lovell. Was talking about like how they had to have actual air hoses to provide them with air while they're in the suits because they're airtight.
It's really cool. They went to an insane amount of detail on this.
They did, yeah.
Apparently the people who made the sets, they had 2 sets of both the LEM and the capsule. And the people who made them are the people who restored the actual Apollo 13 capsule to put on display in the museum somewhere. So yeah, they got the right people to do it. And the sets, they built like the complete set and built them with like removable panels so they could take a side off and then film that way, put it back on, float it around, take another side.
They went to it. So apparently, because they got a load of people, they had so much like professional advice.
Yes.
Like he wanted to go make it really, really detailed.
Yeah.
And apparently some of the mission controllers who were like brought on to like advise them and things.
Yeah.
Like they were on the mission control set, and so one of them was saying like, oh, when he left, he like, because the actual mission control was on like the 3rd floor, so he had to get the elevator
They
down.
recreated it, didn't they?
Yeah.
They built another one, and I think NASA offered that they could use the real one.
Maybe.
But they did, but they turned it down. And they built another one, which was pretty much an exact replica for some reason.
And one of the guys said that like when he left the set, he almost like instinctively was looking for the elevator because like that's how you'd have to get out of the real one.
Yeah, I do love that mission control set. This is a movie where you spend like 2/3 of the movie in 3 locations. You're either at mission control, you're at in the LEM, or in the module.
Command module, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean occasionally you'll go back to Jim Lovell's wife and to various other places, but you spend a lot of time in these locations, and they feel so real.
They do, yeah.
This, more than anything, has engrossed me in the world.
And like that's another thing. They went to so much detail to like get the procedures right, so like, they could have just easily just had them like flipping random switches, and just saying random science words, you know. But no, they went to the trouble of figuring out, okay, this is what you would have done. And
apparently the actors had an actual, like the flight control actors, had actual audio loops so they could talk to each other through those headsets.
Oh, nice.
And I read somewhere that one of the actual NASA flight controllers took them to like a flight control school and taught them all how to do it properly.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is, that'd be so cool,
really
to
cool
do.
to do.
Yeah. So it's like a few weeks of just intensive learning how to do it properly.
That'd be really cool. I want to do that.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
We have to write a space thing. I think first you have to sabotage a space mission.
Yeah.
And make a film about that story. It's probably what Jack Swigert did.
Yeah, that's what he was up to.
I'm sorry, Jack Swigert. I'm going to apologise after every time I do.
Why has he become the villain of this podcast?
Oh, dear.
Oh, what are we up to?
The launch? We're just jumping around.
Yeah, I'll just jump around at this point.
Yeah. Should we just talk about the launch,
Okay, I'm going to look at the launch.
It's great.
It is. It's one of my favourite scenes in any film.
It is very good.
Yeah.
The other thing I love about this movie is just how excited all the flight control people get. And I love watching real footage of it as well.
Yeah.
Because they're just so happy. Which is fair enough, because years of their life have been dedicated to this.
Can I talk about some of the inaccuracies in the launch?
Go on then.
Just because I'm nitpicking.
Fair enough.
But, like, all the inaccuracies are, like, really minor. There's no big inaccuracies, really.
Or they're done for, like, dramatic effect. The arguing in the capsule.
And stuff, I kind of feel bad even just mentioning them, because it's so, like, really pathetically minor stuff.
Well, you've said that it's one of your favourite scenes in any film, so people aren't going to be like, William Wilson hates this film with a burning passion. So what are the technical inaccuracies?
No, it's really petty. But it's like, okay, so you know, like, the umbilical arms that attach?
Yeah.
All of them swing away at the same time, not like one at a time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Film. And also, the engines ignite at T-minus 9 seconds, and it lifts off at 0. Whereas in the film, the engines ignite at 0. And also, the engines ignite in the wrong order.
Whoops.
Like the central engine is supposed to ignite first.
Yeah.
But in the film, they just ignite all at the same time. So, yeah.
That's Saturn V, though.
Yeah.
It's a good Saturn V.
It is. It's got the wrong paint scheme, though. It has the paint scheme of, like, like a mock-up that they used to test like the gantry and stuff.
Yeah.
Not the actual one. So yeah, that's why it broke.
Because they dropped it, so they couldn't use it. They had the Saturn V on that massive, like the tracked vehicle that they move Saturn Vs on, and someone brakes too hard. It just fell off.
Fell over. Yeah. It's like, just pick it back up. It'll be fine.
No one noticed. Yeah. So you were saying earlier that they had a lot of like real people who'd actually been on the mission.
Yes.
NASA were incredibly helpful in the making of this film.
Yeah.
And offered them loads of things. Apparently what is the name of that Saturn V movie tracky vehicle with big tracks?
Oh, you're gonna embarrass me now because I don't know.
Oh, the Crawler? Is that it?
Crawler. I think it does have like an official name.
We'll
Crawler is like an informal thing, I think.
Well, apparently they used the actual one.
Yeah.
And Ron Howard got to drive it.
Wow.
Which is great. So then they get to space.
Yeah.
And then they're in space.
Yeah.
So there was that engine malfunction.
Yes.
Is that a major issue, or do they over-dramatize it, really, for the movie?
Well, I mean, losing an engine is a good thing.
But you've got 4 more. Fine.
It's not something you want to happen.
Maybe Jack Swagger
Jack
wanted
Swagger
to happen.
must have done it.
I like to think there's like a scene missing, and he's just like halfway up the Saturn V with a screwdriver. And one of the like security guys, there's a torch on him. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing up there?" And he's like, I'm just checking
tightening a bolt."
Yep. I'm just making sure you didn't drop it. And then he climbs down. I mean, he's great. He does his job very well.
He does.
He's a
Yeah.
professional. I feel like I have to compliment him every time I insult him, because he's a real person. He's not just some dumb character like whatever Sylvester Stallone was called in Death Race.
Yeah.
It's fine to insult him because it's really dumb.
Why do you hate Jack Swagger?
I don't hate him, I'm sorry. I'm just pinning all the ills of society on him. That's not hate, that's just conjecture. So sorry, they get up to space.
They do the TV broadcast.
Oh, they do the TV broadcast.
And
It wasn't broadcast to the world.
His daughter is sad that the Beatles broke up,
Yeah.
so she doesn't want to go see her dad land on the
In
moon
space.
because the Beatles broke up.
She's just so sad, but
Yeah.
then she goes anyway and has a lovely time.
Yeah.
And the Beatles never come up again.
No, they don't.
That would be great in all those TV broadcasts. And the astronauts are having dangerously high levels of carbon dioxide. But in other news, the Beatles have broken up. Gentlemen, clear the schedules. People weren't interested in the Beatles until they broke up. They did that live TV broadcast that we didn't show. Can you find that? That must be knocking around on the internet.
What?
Their TV broadcast, the real one.
Oh, yeah, you can
Yeah?
find that. Yeah.
I meant to look it up. I did like that bit.
Yeah,
But I enjoyed the
locking him out.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the cassette. They were supposed to play 2001: A Space Odyssey. And what were they playing instead? Something.
Oh, I think it was music they used it in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
can't remember what it
called.
was, but it's he had Peter Quills.
That one.
Yep.
Keep, ladies and gentlemen.
Get out those apps that recognise music.
Yeah, Shazam and whatever.
Put that in, and you'll know exactly what it was. Then email us. Please tell us what it was.
They did also play, in actual Apollo 13, they did also play the 2001 music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So
Because that's why the command module is called Odyssey.
yeah, was it named after 2001?
Yeah, it was like inspired by that.
Excellent. Oh, we haven't mentioned the amazing, awesome fact. The fact that they built the sets inside the Zero-G aircraft.
Yes!
It's
Which we put on our Facebook page.
We
If
did.
people were paying attention.
Many months ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
They built some of the sets, which they used for like the full body shots.
Yep. When did they not have full bodies?
Like a close up of someone's face.
I must have missed the
They
bit where-
don't. They don't lose their bodies. It's called a camera. You don't have to film someone's entire body.
I thought I missed a subplot where Fred Hayes' illness got worse and his legs just fell off.
It's not the measles.
He just gets back and he's just ahead.
Oh.
We left the rest in space. He didn't need it.
It was just extra weight.
Yeah. Yes, I know what you mean. When they're floating about and you can
Yeah.
see all of them, then it's...
Then it's from the vomit comet. Yeah,
I got some numbers. Apparently, they did 612 arcs
parabolas.
or parabolas in 13 days, and each one gave them 20 seconds of like usable time for them to act in.
The amount of zero-G stuff there is, can you imagine if they had to use wires and things?
Oh, it would
have looked really terrible, yeah.
There was a quote from Tom Hanks that was like, doing it this way meant that what would have been a horrible experience with wires and harnesses was actually just great.
Yeah.
That's on my bucket list. Something I want
the
to do.
vomit comet.
Yeah. I want to go on a zero-G flight before I die. I saw, what was it I was watching? I was watching something about it, and they showed you in the cockpit while they were doing it, and just all of the warning alarms are going off. And the captain's like, yeah, planes aren't meant to do this. The plane just panics whenever we do it. But yeah, that's something I desperately want to do.
Mm.
But yes,
you could just put an elevator shaft in a vacuum and just fall down that.
Presumably to my death.
You said you wanted to do it before you die.
I also read somewhere that for some of the to make it look like they were in zero gravity when they actually weren't, they put the actors on some sort of seesaw device.
Yes, they had apparently sometimes it was just like a little box that they could stand on and basically just like wobble around.
That's incredible. Well done, everyone. So what are the problems that they experience in order? First is there's a big old explosion. Is that the next big thing that happens?
Oh, the explosion.
Yeah. And then they're rapidly losing oxygen from tanks 1 and 3. #13.
No. That's fuel cells 1 and 3.
They're rapidly using fuel cells from fuel cell 1 and 3.
Here's Apollo Engineering 101.
Go for it.
We have 2 oxygen tanks.
Yes.
And 2 hydrogen tanks.
Yep.
And 3 fuel cells.
Right.
The oxygen tanks and the hydrogen tanks feed the fuel cells, where the oxygen is mixed with the hydrogen, which gives you electricity and water.
Yep.
That's how it works.
Perfect.
One of the oxygen tanks exploded.
Mm-hmm.
That explosion damaged 2 of the fuel cells, 1 and 3.
Yep.
And the second oxygen tank, which then started leaking.
Right.
And eventually depleted completely. And so then both the oxygen tanks are then empty.
Yep.
So even though you still have 1 good fuel cell, they have no oxygen to power.
So you can't use it.
Yeah.
That's why they have to use the motor on the LEM. That makes perfect sense. I did enjoy that guy who was like, look, the LEM has never designed for this. We're not sure whether it'll even work. And Gene's just like, come on, look, we're not going to blame you if it doesn't work.
That's
calm
one
down.
of the things that I like. And it makes me kind of a bit melancholy, I guess.
Yeah.
It's now, maybe it's not so bad at NASA, but society at large, people are very worried about taking responsibility for things.
Yeah.
And being blamed for stuff. It'd be very easy for all the mission controllers to not suggest anything, in case it didn't work, and then it was their ass on the line. But no, you just doesn't matter. You just got to concentrate and do your job.
Yeah.
Everybody's willing to accept responsibility and take responsibility for things, which is not something you get anymore.
Yeah. But again, it's the same thing with Gene Kranz. He's pushing for success. He knows that these people can do it. He's just pushing everyone to get the best out of it. He is my favourite character in that film.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Just because he knows that they can do it, and he just have to find the way to do it.
Mm.
I don't know how to describe it really, because he's just pushing them all to do the best.
Basically when he and another guy called Chris Kraft basically invented mission control.
Yeah.
And when they did it, they wrote basically a set of rules.
Right.
They're more kind of attitude. A set of attitudes that would define mission control.
Okay, yeah.
And basically one of them is just don't panic. But okay, I'm putting it quite lightheartedly, but basically the entire attitude that you just described is basically
staying level-headed and working the problem.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's a summary of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a hard copy of them which I can dig out if we really can't find it.
We could always do it right at the end as a little bonus. Skim through the rules, and then we can write the practically effective rules.
Practically effective rules.
Because we never panic, do we, Will?
No. We're professional at all times.
We're not flailing right now.
Okay, there's one scene in this that I don't like.
Go on.
It's the bit where some people come from the simulator to talk to Gene Kranz, and they tell him that they don't yet have a startup procedure. And at that moment, he kind of shouts at them. I gets a little bit angry. Even the first time I watched it, and I didn't know quite so much about space, I thought that was I knew a bit about Gene Kranz, and I thought that was out of character. And I checked, and indeed, throughout the whole thing, he never raised his voice once.
Yeah.
In the actual thing. And I thought that was quite a disservice to his character, because his whole character is always calm and collected and level-headed all the time, no matter the world could be ending around you, and Gene Kranz would be sitting there just working the problem.
All right, let's put out that fire.
Exactly.
Now we can get to work.
Exactly. You just work the problem.
Yeah.
And that scene, I think, was a slight disservice to him.
Yeah.
Because it showed him getting a bit.
Yeah, he doesn't lose his head, does he? But he snaps at them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's the moment where I don't know who it is that's talking behind him, but it's someone who's above him in NASA. And he's like, "This could be the greatest."
But in
failure.
that room, he is God.
Yeah,
Like-
but he says so the guy's like, "This could be the greatest failure in NASA's history,"
he said,
and he says, "With all due respect, sir." So I don't know who he was talking to, but he's like, "I think this will be our finest hour."
Yeah.
And that sums up his attitude perfectly. That little quote. Also, failure is not an option.
Yeah.
This is really I don't want to say it's very complimentary of NASA.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like he's just doing it to compliment them. But he's telling their story faithfully.
Yeah, but they were just very professional.
Yeah, exactly.
The time of very professional people doing a very hard job.
Yeah, and he's just showing, Ron Howard is just showing that.
Yeah.
So he is giving them a compliment, but also it's just what they did.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can you imagine any organization now, even NASA, being so consummately professional in such a crisis? Everyone's too worried about. Everyone's panicked.
Being blamed for things,
everyone's too worried about being blamed. Yeah.
I'm sure there are places that do it that we just don't know about. So, yes, where were we vaguely chronologically up to? Tanks exploded.
Kaboom!
Yeah. We didn't talk about Tom Hanks' little dream. Oh, we haven't got there yet, that's why.
Yeah.
We didn't talk in depth about Mrs. Lovell's little dream.
Oh, yeah.
Where Tommy Hanks flies out.
He does, yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty good. They must have done that on wires.
Yeah. I
didn't just throw him out of the
throw him out of the plane.
Yeah. I didn't explicitly look that up, which is annoying, but they must have done.
Yeah.
But that's a good sequence as well. I like it. I've just realised that it says John Swagger on your shirt. I mean, Jack is short for John.
Yeah.
Also, it's the same length as John,
Yeah.
but it's short for John. So yeah, it's allowed.
Makes sense, yeah.
But I mean, he's using a fake name. This is adding suspicion.
Yeah, he's a shady character.
Yeah, I reckon he took the place of his brother John Swagger,
John Swagger,
who was actually supposed to be on the. Yeah, I think it's all coming together now. We're unraveling this.
We're unraveling this mystery.
So what were we actually talking about? Oh yes, I was going to ask you some things. One of them we talked about already. Oh yeah, Mount Marilyn.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks and his wife.
Yeah.
He has a mountain on Mars, on the moon.
Mountain on Mars.
A mountain on the moon that he calls Mount Marilyn.
Yeah.
That comes up a few times. Is that a thing?
It is, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's an actual thing.
It's a lunar mountain within the Montes.
And you're surprised that it's a lunar mountain.
The
name was informal until July of last year.
Oh, that's
when
cool.
It was officially recognised by the International Astronomy Union.
Yeah, it was named at the time of the Apollo 8 mission to the moon. I mean, they keep saying the Apollo 8 mission is to the moon.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, it's past the moon. They just went round the moon. They didn't go to the moon.
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't. If I'm like, I'm going to work, I run to work, run round the building and then go home. That doesn't count.
When you say, you said I'm going to meet Will.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to run into me.
I have to land on the surface of Will if I'm going to meet you. If I was like, I'm going to Will,
Yeah.
I have to like somehow floor you and stand upon your back, plant a flag, and then escape your gravity.
Yep.
Yep. This all made sense. So yes, Matt, I had some other questions. No, I actually asked them all. This is the thing I was laughing about earlier.
Yeah.
Because we were just talking about the Strange Adventures comics and their love of gorillas.
Yeah.
And I opened my book and the first thing I saw was my note, luggage gorilla, question mark, question mark, question mark.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
What was that? So, while Will is recovering, for context, there's
the thing you said as well.
when the TV broadcast should have been on, Jim Lovell's mum is in a nursing home, and she's like, "Oh, they said my son was going to be on the TV."
Yeah.
And they're flicking through the channels, and the doctor's like, "Oh, nurse is like, sorry, ma'am, it doesn't appear to be here," and he just leaves the TV on a show. And it's just a monkey cage, and there's a gorilla flailing about with like an orange suitcase.
And what is it the narrator says?
It's something about baggage handling.
No, he says...
You've got to look it up.
Savage Baggage Masters, isn't
The
it?
Savage Baggage Handler or something like that.
I don't think that has anything to do with the Apollo 13.
I like to think it was a TV show that was on at the time.
Oh.
They just give Gorilla random things.
Gorilla, today we gift you
This baggage.
a bicycle.
And then he just slams it around his cage for half an hour, and that's the show.
This savage cyclist.
Why?
It's amazing.
It's amazing and bizarre. The rest of the movie should have just been her watching that, being very confused.
That's not my son.
Oh no, there he is. Thank you, young man.
Anyway.
Yes. So, carrying on.
Yep.
Do we just go to the moon dream where Tom Hanks dreams he's on the moon?
Oh yeah. That's not a dream. He's not asleep.
He's a daydream.
Yeah.
It's his. He's thinking about the moon.
Yes, he is.
While looking at the moon.
Yep.
Like we all do.
Yeah.
From time to time.
Yep.
Some guy, I don't know who this is, but someone called Billy Wilder, some movie director from the olden days. He said that this was Ron Howard's best film because it's about a guy who doesn't achieve his dream.
Mm.
He dreams of going to the moon and then he just doesn't go there. And yeah, I quite like that quote.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do it any service there. I butchered it a bit, but I like the fact that this guy really wanted to go to the moon, and in the end he was just happy to get home alive.
Mm.
And it's not about him reassessing his priorities and being like, I was too focused on my work and I need to spend more time with my family. It was more that just he really wanted this and he just didn't get it. And there's no villain in this movie.
Jack Swigert.
The medical scientist.
The flight surgeon.
As much as we joke about it, there isn't a villain. It's just they have to get round the problem.
Hmm.
Not get round it. Yeah. But they have to solve the problem. And that's the thing that stops him achieving his dream. It's not a big villain. It's not some dastardly scheme. It's just that's the way it worked. I can't think of a Ron Howard movie that's better than this.
No.
It might be my favourite movie set in space.
Yeah, I agree.
2001: A Space Odyssey?
It's probably equal with that. Maybe slightly better.
Yeah. Because this even beats us. As much as I love a Star Wars, this gets me much...
That's way beats Star Wars. Like, as I said, when I said I can't watch this with other people because I get all emotional, I wasn't joking.
Yeah. It's... Because it's true. It hits you in a place that's far beyond anything fictional. Apparently at the time when it came out, there were people who were like, look, I like the movie, but it was very unrealistic. I don't... Yeah. It's embarrassing, isn't it? Because it would surely be within their lifetimes. It came out in 95.
95, yeah.
And the mission was 1970?
Mission was 1970, yeah.
So it's 25 years. Was it released on an anniversary? Like, intentionally?
Well, there'll be an anniversary every year. Anyway.
Anyway, is it then that they have the CO2 warning?
Yeah.
Is that on the way back from the moon?
That's on the way back, yeah.
That's... I think I've already said this, but my actual favourite scene in this movie is when the mission control guy comes in with a box of things, lays it out on the table, and he's like, guys, we have to make this filter go in the hole for this one using only this
stuff. Yeah.
And they go to work, and then my other, the co-favourite scene is when they're running through the corridors with this complete shambles of a piece of equipment. And he's like, they've got to build this. And it's like a box wrapped in a plastic bag with a tube coming out of it. And the guy looks at it as much as say, get this off my desk. But no, that's my favourite scene. That whole... All those combination... That's many scenes. It's my favourite bit of the movie. Because I love it. I don't need to justify my reasons to you. This might be a podcast, but damned if I release any of my internal thoughts, feelings. But yes, that's the best bit of that film. In my humble opinion. It kind of is the epitome of the movie, in that they have a problem to solve with very limited resources, And just through their brain power and teamwork, they do it. Not because it's easy, but because they have to. I'm not articulate enough to explain how amazing I find this stuff. Like, I would love to meet people in the film industry, and I'd love to meet Ron Howard. He seems like a lovely man. But it would be an honour to meet those astronauts. Yeah. It would be another level. They're not just celebrities who are good at doing a thing. These people are I'm not articulate enough to do this. But they're just amazing. Amazing people. And even all the people who worked to bring them home as well. Their attitude, their focus on the job, just the way they are is just great. It's what I aspire to be. Where next?
CO2 canister.
Yep. Ken comes into the simulator.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to power up with less than, 20 amps?
12.
12 amps.
But this is what I was going to say. They already had a procedure to do that.
Okay.
And Ken Mattingly never actually went. Ken Mattingly was there to help with various stuff.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that. They did put people in the simulator just to check the procedures.
Right.
And go over them, but you already had the procedures there to do that.
Okay, so that wasn't a big deal in reality. And then they're all worried that the chutes won't open. They're worried that the
heat shield might be damaged.
Oh, yeah, there's the bit where they detach from the service module.
Yeah, and they
see the damage.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant scene shot. That's one of the best effects. Oh, then they come into the atmosphere, don't they? And they're cut off for, is it 4 minutes?
4 minutes, yeah.
Which they think is the amount of time that...
It's supposed to be 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's longer because they were shallow.
Oh, yes. That's the other thing. There's that guy in the control room.
Yeah.
Everyone in the control room is communicating really well. And they're all working as a team. And then there's the bit where Gene Kranz is they're still coming in a bit too shallow.
Yeah.
Why could that be? And then one of the techies just goes, they didn't land on the moon. And then Kranz goes, he thinks for a second, he's like, rocks. And the guy's like, yes, if they'd landed on the moon, they'd be returning with several tons of moon rock.
Several tons?
Yes.
Wow.
Several pounds. But he's he doesn't give the answer to the question until Gene Kranz has got the answer. Yeah. So, yeah.
But also, that was because... So the reason for that was because the lunar module basically was leaking water vapor, which was providing a thrust which made them shallow.
And they land...
That's why it takes a bit longer than they expected.
Oh, of course, because they're in the atmosphere for longer.
Yeah.
Genius. And then they land... And then they get out, and that's the end of the movie.
The captain of the ship is played by Jim Lovell.
Real Jim Lovell, yeah. Did you hear that, I keep wanting to say Ridley Scott, Ron Howard wanted to make him an admiral?
Yes, but he said that he wanted to be a captain because that's what...
That was his rank in the Navy when he left. Should we have a note skim and throw random facts at each other? Jim Lovell suggested Kevin Costner to play himself. But he was never properly considered. And John Travolta turned the role down. Because I can't imagine anyone other than Tom Hanks playing Jim Lovell.
No.
Because he does it so well. Also, Brad Pitt turned down a role, which surely must have been Jack Swagger.
Yeah. There was a space shuttle astronaut who said, and I agree with him, that this is the only realistic space movie.
Really?
There is, yeah.
Okay.
I agree with him on that.
Yeah? I can't think of any others. Well, most of the ones I can think of are set in the future.
The only contender would be 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah,
if we just take the actual spacecraft bits of that.
Yeah, set in the future again.
Yeah. Well,
set in the my goodness, set in the very futuristic past of 2001.
Yeah.
Oh, do you hear this won some Oscars?
Yeah, I was aware it won some Oscars. Yeah.
It did win some of the dud Oscars though.
Like sound.
It won Best Sound.
Yeah.
And Best Film Editing.
Wow.
And infuriatingly, it lost Best Visual Effects to Babe, which is a film about a talking pig.
Why?
Because, well, the pig looked like it was talking. But truly, it was not.
Wow.
Frankly, it's insulting.
It is.
It was nominated for about 7, I think.
Mm.
But obviously only won 2. We should do more space ones.
Yes, I agree.
Because you have such a vast knowledge of all this stuff that we need...
And if I don't, I probably have a book that has it, to be honest.
Yeah. You know Jerry Griffin?
No.
Okay, he's the flight controller who ran the flight controller school. Oh, apparently he was an actual Apollo 13 flight controller, according to my notes.
Yeah, there are several. Because obviously you can't have one guy on duty. There are like 4 flight control teams, I think.
Yeah. How many people roughly would there have been in that room?
Well, the thing is...
Yeah.
And so the flight controllers have those headsets.
Yeah.
The guys they're talking to are usually guys in like back rooms somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So basically each guy you see in Mission Control has literally an entire room full of people all supporting him.
Yeah.
So there's like a vast number.
So he's just the front line.
He's the front line, and each guy in Mission Control has an entire team in another room.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I didn't realise that. I thought they were talking to each other. Oh, hey, here's a pretty cool fact. I've lost it. Where was it? There it is. So the Earth, in like the background as the spaceship is flying past it, some of the pictures of the Earth were pictures actually taken by Jim Lovell on Apollo 8.
Oh, that's nice. I
Which
didn't
is
know that.
cool.
Yeah.
Ron Howard, hilarious man that he is, referred to the actors as actronauts.
Wow.
Stick to filmmaking, Ron. Should we wrap up? Unless there's anything else you'd like to say,
Well, I can find...
as the expert in the area.
I'm determined to find these.
Wouldn't be in his autobiography, would they?
Yeah, that might be it. One of the appendices. Ah, yes, it is.
Do you want a dramatic reading?
A dramatic reading.
Well, it doesn't have to be dramatic, I can just read it. Foundations of Mission Control.
Yeah.
That's better than rules.
Yeah.
Go on then.
To instill within ourselves these qualities essential for professional excellence. Discipline. Being able to follow as well as lead, knowing that we must master ourselves before we can master our task. Competence. There being no substitute for total preparation and complete dedication, for space will not tolerate the careless or indifferent.
That should be the motto of this podcast. Except we swap space for the internet.
Confidence. Believing in ourselves as well as others, knowing that we must master fear and hesitation before we can succeed. Responsibility. Realizing that it cannot be shifted to others, for it belongs to each of us. We must answer for what we do or fail to do. Toughness. Taking a stand when we must, to try again and again, even if it means following a more difficult path. Teamwork. Respecting and utilizing the ability of others, realizing that we work toward a common goal, for success depends on the efforts of all. To always be aware that suddenly and unexpectedly we may find ourselves in a role where our performance has ultimate consequences. To recognize that the greatest error is not to have tried and failed, but that in trying we did not give it our best efforts.
It's a very good list.
Yeah.
Did he write that?
He wrote that together with Chris Kraft, I think.
Yeah. That's a good list of things, just generally for life.
Yeah.
I would like to borrow that book, if that's okay.
No.
But, I mean, before you said yes, but this is on record.
Nobody knows what I said in private, Joe. I do have 2 copies, like I said, so...
you refuse to give me that one or the other
or
one.
the other one.
Alright, shall we... Best effect, worst effect?
Best effect, worst effect.
What do you think the best effect was?
The best effect.
William Wilson.
The best effect, eh?
Given that you've declared one scene in this movie to be the best movie scene of all time, in your opinion.
The best sort of... I mean, like, the most visually spectacular, the most visually effective.
Yes.
The visuals that has the most effect on me.
Yeah. You agree with Ron Howard. He says exactly the same. But what do you think the best effect was?
I quite like the re-entry effect, actually.
No, I agree. That's a very good scene.
That was... They filmed fire at 4 seconds per frame.
4 seconds per frame. That's pretty cool.
4 seconds... I think it was fire. Yeah. They filmed some fire at 4 seconds per frame. And so it, like, really smears it out.
I get it, yeah. It's a long exposure.
Yeah.
Okay, my best effect, just before the re-entry scene, they've just... so it's just the capsule, and there's one shot, it flies over the top of the camera, like, and the Earth is in the bottom of frame, and it flies over the camera, and you can see the reflection of the Earth in the capsule.
That's nice.
It's beautiful, and I love it. I want it on a poster. It's great. I don't know how they did it. Worst effect.
I refuse to give one.
Really?
I won't give one. No.
I also found this very hard. No, not Fred Hayes. Who was it?
He's the worst effect.
No, Ken Ken, we didn't mention
Ken
this.
Mattingly.
Ken, he has a really weird gold car.
So most of the astronauts drove Corvettes like that.
Well, bright, like gold
Yeah,
ones.
like really brightly coloured ones. And like I told you before about how the Apollo 12 crew is like my favourite. They all each one of them had a red Corvette like that, and they would just drive them around together.
I mean, the Tom Hanks on the moon stuff. I mean, I don't hate it, but it's the bit when I'm watching all the spacecraft, I think that could actually be happening. But that bit kind of took me out of the movie a bit because he's obviously not there. Stanley Kubrick destroyed the sets that he used to film the fake moon landings, so it took me out of the movie a bit seeing the moon in that way because you never see HD video of the moon.
No,
and it was sandier than I thought it would be. I mean, this is me nitpicking horribly, but I think if I had to say a worst effect, which apparently you don't, but for the continuity of this podcast, I will have to lift for both of us.
Oh no, I feel mad.
So you hate the gold Corvettes.
What?
I've given you that one.
That's not an effect even, that's just a car.
Okay, you can have Jack Swagger.
What, just in total?
Kevin Bacon's face.
It's not an effect.
No, it's not.
It's a face.
No, but the moon stuff.
Right.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but I can't think of any other bad examples of it or effects that were bad. Because all the space stuff is fantastic. And really holds up.
Yeah.
For a movie from 1995. Also because they did a lot of stuff for real, like using the real crawler.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing.
Oh, for the splashdown, actually I might make this my best effect just because of how it was done.
Good.
For the splashdown, apparently they just had a model of the command module.
Yeah.
With some parachutes on top and they just chucked it out of a helicopter.
Oh, that's great. Oh, well done. So now
is on to the best segment.
Have we talked about your 3 10-tier movies?
Oh,
on the podcast
I don't think
before?
we have.
I don't think we have.
My IMDb ratings.
Yep.
There are only 3 films on IMDb that I've rated 10 out of 10 that don't have Jennifer Lawrence in them. They are 2001: A Space Odyssey,
Yep.
Dunkirk, and Apollo 13.
Yes.
They're the only 3. But otherwise, normally Jennifer Lawrence being in a film is a requirement to get 10 out of 10, but I made exceptions for those 3 because I think they're so good.
Yep.
So I don't know what score I'd give Apollo 13 if it had Jennifer Lawrence in.
Has she ever done a space movie besides Passengers?
Passengers.
Apart from
Damn
that?
it. No. I already know who I want Jennifer Lawrence to play in this, but I want to see what suggestions you have.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's Gene Kranz.
It is actually. It is Gene Kranz, actually.
Are we allowing gender flipping of real people?
Yes. Because otherwise it would have to be Jim Lovell's wife. I don't have any other choices.
It could be... Whose wife is it? That's
Fred Hayes'
pregnant?
wife.
Fred Hayes'
Yeah.
wife. Oh, I like the idea of just making her like one of the little people.
One of the little people.
Like the medical scientists or everything. Or the
villain of the film.
the guy who just says, "We didn't land on the moon." That guy. She could be... It's not fun when you've already made up your mind.
Well, that's what I didn't want to tell you, but you forced it out of me. You can convince me to change to someone else if you have a better
I don't think I'm going to beat Gene Kranz though, am I?
You can try.
She can be...
John Aaron. I haven't talked about John Aaron.
John Aaron?
I'll get to him. Let's do the important section first.
Okay, she could be John Aaron.
No.
She could be... I can't think of any really important minor characters. I mean,
Really important minor characters.
We've talked about little people in the control room all the way through the movie.
Yeah.
But now I've forgotten all of them. Oh, we didn't talk about Jim Lovell's children.
No.
Because, as stated on this very podcast, children always annoy you in movies.
Yeah.
Did these children annoy you?
No.
Even when she was like, I don't want to go see my
Oh,
dad.
she did. The daughter did.
Yeah.
Neither of the sons did because they weren't whining about anything. That's my main complaint about children in films, is they whine all the time.
No, he had 2 daughters and 1 son.
No.
Yeah,
2
definitely.
sons and a daughter.
No, he definitely had 2 daughters. Because in the hippie scene...
Yeah. Oh,
She's-
2 daughters and 2 sons, actually.
Yes, that's it. Carry on.
The younger
We
daughter,
just ditched a child.
the younger daughter doesn't really show up much.
No, barely at all.
The older son is being very stoic, and he's on a military academy and everything.
Yes, I'd forgotten
The
him.
younger son is convinced that the door is the only component that could be faulty on the Apollo spacecraft.
You saw Jack Swagger up there with his screwdriver at the door.
And then the daughter's like, "Oh, my dad could die in space, but I'm not worried about that." The Beatles broke up.
The little boy, though, he is probably the most prominent of the children.
He shows up the most, yeah.
Because Jim shows him how the spaceship lands.
Yeah.
And then he's worried about the door.
Are you suggesting that Jennifer Lawrence play the older daughter?
No, I'm suggesting youngest son.
No.
Why not?
Be gone.
I don't
No.
see why this is a
No,
problem.
it's the worst idea you've ever had.
I just want to see Tom Hanks and Jennifer Lawrence. I just want to see them sat at a kitchen table and Tom Hanks explaining space travel as if to a 5-year-old. That's all I want. And she's like, "You are a great astronaut. Is the door going to get
Is
stuck?"
the door gonna be?
Yeah.
Ugh, that's the worst idea. That's not just the worst idea for Jennifer Lawrence you've had. It's the worst idea you've ever had in your life.
I don't think so. I could have suggested oldest daughter, which
No,
is the worst idea.
That is the worst idea, yeah.
John
Allen, I'll explain more about John Allen later, but just so you know, it's the guy who delivers the CO2 filter.
Oh, yes.
And he calls him a steely-eyed missile man.
Yes.
We'll get onto that.
That's a great quote.
We'll get onto that later, but
You're
just so you know
steely-eyed
who,
missile man.
just so you know who John Allen is for
I mean, he's
Jennifer
great.
Lawrence purposes.
He does my favourite thing. He pours the box of things on the table.
Stuff on the table. I was gonna say Gene Kranz because he's probably my greatest. I don't like calling people
Yeah.
like heroes. It sounds very corny,
Yeah.
but he's probably the closest that I have.
Someone you really look up to.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the person who I try most to emulate in life.
Yeah.
But John Allen is also kind of like that if you like find out more about him.
But I
Gene
love Ed Harris. Ed Harris is such an underrated actor.
Yeah.
I love his performance in this. And I wouldn't swap him out even for Jennifer Lawrence. I'd like to see Jennifer Lawrence come in and act beside him, playing
As
Gene
John
Kranz.
Allen.
As John Aaron, exactly.
That's true. But
In-
Gene Kranz has a much larger role.
True. How about she's John Aaron,
Yeah.
but we give her the role of, in the first 30 minutes of the movie, kicking indoors and shouting, "You're going to space!"
You're going to space. Oh, you're not going to space.
Exactly.
Alright. In the spirit of gradually altering films more
Yeah.
to put Jennifer Lawrence in them. Although she plays John Aaron, but for the first 30 minutes she goes around telling people they are or aren't going to space.
Alright, so leaderboards.
Leaderboard. I'll talk about John Aaron first.
Oh, let's talk about
Now
John
that
Aaron,
we've
yes, sorry.
assigned Jennifer Lawrence that role. So he saved Apollo 12
Right.
because that's a long time since I read about this, so I might be kind of shaky on the details.
Sorry.
But basically, Apollo 12 got struck by some lightning,
Really?
and there's like a really famous quote. If you're like watching the Apollo 12 launch audio,
Yeah.
like because I'm a huge space nerd, you can get on the internet all the audio loops for mission control.
Yeah?
You can like just listen to those for like hours.
Yeah.
And like you can listen to Apollo 13, all the audio when the emergency happens and things like that. It's
Wow.
very cool. But Apollo 12 got struck by some lightning, and basically it stopped all telemetry getting back from mission control to
Yeah.
mission control from the spacecraft. And basically nobody in mission control knew what to do.
Right.
They was like they couldn't think of anything, and this was like during launch, so it's quite
Okay.
critical to do things quickly.
Yeah.
And John Aaron, the really famous quote is, "Tell him to switch SCE to AUX."
Right.
And like the commander of the mission, Pete Conrad, you can hear him radio back saying, "What the hell is that?" He didn't know what that meant, but fortunately, Alan Bean, the command module pilot, no, I think he was a lunar module pilot. Well, anyway, he knew where that switch was and. But it was like the commander of the mission was like, "What the hell is that?"
Highly trained professionals.
Yeah. But like, there's so many switches, you don't know where
of
every
course.
single little switch is.
Yeah.
On Apollo 13, he wasn't on duty at the time of the accident, but he was assigned by Gene Kranz basically to be in charge of the power supply on the lunar module, which was like the really major thing. That was the big problem they were having, and he was like in charge of that. And basically Gene Kranz said that if he tells you to do something, you do it. And he can, like, override other flight controls and everything. So he's, like, big mission control hero. And that's where he got the nickname Steely-Eyed Missile Man from the Apollo 12.
Excellent. Were there any other issues on Apollo 12 apart from being struck by lightning?
All of them have, like,
something happens.
Glitches and things, because just by the nature of how complicated they are. But yeah. Apollo 12 crew are my favourite crew. I told you about some of their
Go on, tell us some of the antics.
Alright. Oh, Pete Conrad's first word. The third man to walk on the moon.
Yep.
Pete Conrad. So Pete Conrad was a very, like, quite a short guy. And as you can imagine, people kind of commented on this a bit, you know.
Yeah.
And so he jumps off the ladder onto the moon, and the world waits with bated breath. Like I think there's like news reporters will say like, "What words of wisdom will he have?"
Yeah.
The third man to walk on the moon, and he comes out with, "Oh, that might have been a short step for Neil, but it's a long one for me."
That's such a good line. Do we know what Jim Lovell would have said when he set foot on the moon?
No, I don't think so. Like I don't think they really.
It's not
plan it
planned.
that much, yeah.
Yeah.
Shall I tell the lunar plan, the one I told you about with the
Yes.
the backup crew? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Apollo 12 crew were all like very banterful boys, but the backup crew must have been like pretty nice to hang around with as well, because the astronauts on the like wrist of their spacesuits, they had like smaller versions of the flight plan to for what the stuff they were going to do on the moon.
Yeah.
And the backup crew were in charge of preparing this, and without anyone knowing, they alternated in pictures of scantily clad ladies into the plan, which nobody knew about. So they were very surprised when they opened them on the moon.
Well done, everyone.
I think also of one of the Apollo 12 crew, I can't remember which one, but he, just before undergoing some medical tests to become an astronaut, he was like slightly too tall. So he literally spent the night jumping up and down trying to compress his spine. And just scraped in under the line.
Well done, sir.
And I don't know how true this one is.
Yeah.
I think like the spirit of it is true, but maybe the details aren't quite right. But basically, Alan Bean was working on the Skylab mission, which was supposed to be after Apollo, and he was like working on like paperwork and stuff for this. And the story goes that apparently he was like, Alan Bean was working on this relatively unexciting project, and Pete Conrad just walks after him and goes, "Hey Al, you want to come to the moon with me?" And Alan just went, "Yeah, okay." And Pete just walked, okay.
Speaking of whether or not stories are true, is the story that Jim Lovell tells about his
aircraft carrier.
Yes, the aircraft carrier.
That's true, yeah. That's true.
That's a good story. Well deployed in the movie. What do we do after this? Leaderboards.
Leaderboards, yeah.
Shall we leaderboards?
After my Apollo 12 anecdotes.
Yes. That should be a regular segment.
I mean, I know many more Apollo. If you want Apollo 12 anecdotes every episode, I have enough.
We should have done episode 12 on Apollo 12. It's not a movie. We just should have talked about it.
I have an oh, I don't know when to stop.
Go on, do one more.
I have one more. Basically, Pete Conrad on the spacecraft, he was being like really like mothering and like really like a mother. And so you know, like when you're on a school trip and they always make sure you've gone to the toilets before you leave.
Yeah.
But basically, Pete Conrad was talking to the other crew members before they were landing on the moon. He was just insisting they go to the toilet.
There's not going to be a bathroom out there on the moon, is there?
Supposedly, that's what he said.
That's great. So, where does this sit on your leaderboard?
So I would like to... I don't know if this is against the rules of Practically Effective.
Well,
I would like to reorder my leaderboard.
You fiend.
From some previous ones. I know.
Oh, right, okay. Well, okay, let's see what...
Let's get the leaderboards up.
What is your leaderboard?
It currently goes Blade Runner, Alien, Die Hard, Jurassic Park, Prattman Begins, Spiderman, and Superman.
You have the chance there to plug all our previous episodes.
Go watch them now.
So what are you proposing a reorder of?
I'm proposing reorder of.
Yes.
Are you saying you might not allow it?
Well, the committee will have to gather.
The practically effective.
The investors in Practically Effective will have to have a board meeting.
Mm-hmm. All I wanted to do was move Jurassic Park to the top. That's the only change I wanted to make.
How come?
I was thinking about it, and I just think it's just a lot better than I gave it credit for. I think I was harsh. I think I judged it too hastily.
I don't know what this will do to our continuity, Will. People who listen from start to finish will be baffled.
Well, that's why I'm announcing it now. I'm not just changing it on the rankings.
Which you have the power to do because you upload them.
Yeah. So even if you say no, I'm just going to change it.
I like that you've respectfully come to the committee. I'd like you to fill in this
so you
form.
Understand. I'm informing you. I'm not requesting.
I think we can shuffle them around because people have opinions on movies and people's opinions change as they carry on through life. And as they realise that Jurassic Park is the best movie, like in my list.
Good.
Are we slowly just becoming the same person?
Yeah, next week you're going to try and move Alien up to second.
Yeah. So I'm assuming it's going to go in your top 3.
Mine goes right at the top.
Right in the top 3.
Yeah.
So what is your top 3 and then...
My top 3 now would be Apollo 13.
Yep.
Jurassic Park, Blade Runner.
My top 3 is Jurassic Park, Die Hard, Alien.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I love Apollo 13. It's a great film. But...
No.
It doesn't have dinosaurs.
It has spaceships. It has gene fans.
Okay, here's my flaw with the Blade Runner. No. Here's my problem with Apollo 13.
Oh, good luck with this.
There's a lot of exposition.
Yeah.
And it needs to be there, but... Okay, some of the exposition is really clever. Like when Jack Swigert is talking about the docking with with the lady, and there's a few other scenes where they're resolving one thing but also setting up another thing, and it's really clever. But especially in the last third of the movie, a lot of it is just news reports.
Yeah.
And the astronauts are running low on their CO2, which is good. They had too much earlier. That was the problem.
Too much CO2.
See our previous report about that. But yeah, it's a lot of people in newsrooms talking, and it's some of them are to get Marilyn's reaction or to get Ken's reaction or whatever, but some of them are just there just to tell you the plot.
Yeah.
And also at the end, they lay it on a bit thick with the heat shield may be damaged and the parachute may not open and we may have done all this for nothing. So, I mean, it's great.
But I like that because it's sort of saying you have this team of the best people for the job.
Yeah.
And yet ultimately they can't do everything,
And they could have
can't
got this
guarantee
far.
everything, yeah.
I agree. But also it's at the point where, I mean, I believe they've used all the tension, in my experience anyway. They'd used the tension, and by that point, I was like, okay, they get back now. You don't need to keep going with this.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to put it at number 3.
What?
So that's behind...
That's outrageous.
It's behind Jurassic Park, behind Die Hard.
That's outrageous.
I know it is. It's certainly better than Alien.
That's outrageous.
That means it's the best movie on my list set in space.
What other ones are set in space?
Alien.
Oh, yeah.
It's also 2 hours and 20 minutes
Gene
long.
Chen is going to come and...
Jack Swigert, we're going.
Jack Swigert's going to come and sabotage your spaceship.
We're driving home and all the oxygen will just fly out of my car.
The flight sergeant's going to say, you might get measles.
I'm sorry, you can't drive home.
Can't drive, you might get the measles. At least put it above Die Hard. Come on.
Oh, but Die Hard's so good.
Oh, Apollo 13's better.
Oh, I love Die Hard.
But Apollo 13's better. Apollo 13 really happened.
Yeah, but Die Hard really happened.
That's something I like about this film, is that it would have been very easy for them to overly dramatize it.
Definitely, yes.
It would have been very easy for them to have just they I don't know, they have some argument with Mission Control or something, and they're just no, we have to try and land on the moon anyway, blah, 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 something like that. But the director realised, it's a true story and it's dramatic enough as it is. You don't need to over-dramatize it.
And especially, the Marilyn Lovell stuff.
Yeah.
They could easily have made her, weeping into her pillow. And But she's still a good character,
Yes.
which is
I like her reaction to the news reporters.
yeah,
Panel,
that's
yeah.
great. Number 3 there. I'm sticking with my
No.
I'm sticking by my guns.
We're not finishing this until you move it up to 2.
Here's the thing, though. My list at home, I've already put it up there.
No.
So unless
That
you
doesn't matter. I'm going to drive to your house.
want to break in,
Break in.
swap them around.
See, you don't even know the other people that live in your house, so nobody will know that I don't live there. They'll just think they've never seen me before.
Yeah, they
Because that's
will.
apparently a normal occurrence.
I think I've got a handle on everyone now. Although there is still one door that I'm not sure if it leads to a room or a cupboard. One day I'm just going to knock on it and run away. And if like some bed sheets come out, like, what are you doing out there, you young rapscallion? I'll know it's a cupboard.
Come on, move it up a second.
Oh, just
Apollo 13.
Die Hard's the
no.
best action movie.
Why do you prefer Die Hard?
Okay. Actually, if you think about it,
You're
it's...
going to say that Die Hard is the same as Apollo?
No, I'm not going to say the same. I'm just going to say they're both about people / groups of people who make intelligent decisions and are stuck in a situation they don't want to be in but just have to work through it. I love that in a movie.
Mm.
Die Hard's really low on your list now. It's at number 5.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? I mean, your opinion is perfectly valid, but what's wrong with you?
My correct opinion is that Apollo 13 is perhaps the best film I've made. And so you can at least put it second on your shitty list.
Alright, Die Hard, I love the villain, and Apollo 13 does
Apollo 13 has the flight surgeon. He's the villain.
Now, if halfway through, if when they'd pulled the, like, all the medical gear off, they'd stormed out and broken into the vaults, I would have been on board.
Okay, what if the flight surgeon was played by Alan Rickman?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm completely sold. Mr. Lovell, I'm going to count to 3.
Mr. Lovell, you have 3 seconds to reattach the medical sensors. There will not be a 4. Come on.
Better.
Move Apollo 13 up to second.
Here's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to tell you that I'm going to move it up to second, and then I'm going to edit this bit out, and then in canon, it will still be in third.
Joe, I'm like the guys in 1984 who rewrite history, okay? I upload these. So if I move it up to second here and just keep it there, that's what it will become. It will become true just through repetition.
Oh, that's true as well. Alright, that's how this will end. I'm going to put it at third. And
No.
for the purposes of the entire future of Practically Effective, you're going to put it in second place. It's like the fact that episode 4 and 5 are in our thing in the wrong way round.
Yeah.
It's just the Practically Effective way.
Effective way.
So, yes. Also, the YouTube uploads are a bit of a mess.
A bit of a mess.
Numerically speaking.
I put them in a playlist though,
Yeah?
so
Oh,
now
man.
they're less disordered.
Excellent. Alright, so is that it? Are we done?
You should do more space ones.
Yes, we do. Alright, what are we doing next week, Will?
Jimbo and the
Jimbo and the Astronauts!
Jimbo and the astronauts. Yeah.
Now we've got another viewer request.
Yep.
Our last one, Death Race.
That turned out to be I loved that. So
To be fair, is one of my favourite episodes we've
Yeah.
done. And our next request is Jason and the Argonauts.
Jimbo and the
Astronauts.
Jim for James,
Yep.
as in James Lovell,
Yep.
and the astronauts. That could be an alternative title for Apollo 13.
We're just doing Apollo 13 again. We're
We
sorry.
should. We should just do Apollo 13 every week.
We should.
I have enough to say about this film to just go on for many episodes.
We could seriously do a space podcast
Yes.
with you just saying things about space and me just being surprised.
Yeah, we could do that.
Joe and Will talk about space.
Practically effective spin-off. We should do that. I mean, we could do that.
I'm on board. I love this stuff.
Yeah, okay. You can do that.
I love things, and I also love not knowing much about things and having someone who really loves that thing explaining it to you. Anyway, yes, Jason and the Argonauts.
Jason and Jim Jam and the... We need to come up with more of these.
We've got a whole episode next
Jim
week.
Jam and the Bim Bams.
Alright, next time, bi-weekly, when we're not allowed to say the Jason and the Argonauts more than once in the episode.
Introduce it like that.
We introduce
We're not
Jason.
allowed to refer to it ever again.
Introduce it as Jason and the Argonauts, and then from then on you've got to call it Jim Jam and the Blimbly Bolts or something. Just made up nonsense for the rest of the podcast.
Jimbo and his bimbo.
Jason and the Bornonauts. Joe and the Willanauts.
I think I would be the leader. No, but we looked it up.
We just...
Jason, the Argonauts were a group of Greek heroes.
And Jason was there too.
Jason was also there.
Anyway, we're leaking into the next episode.
Yeah.
So we should wrap up.
Bim bam bing bong.
Well, do your spiel in a Gene Kranz voice. No. Can you?
Well, I can just be very calm and monotone. Don't worry, everyone. Thank you for listening to Practically Effective. You can...
Well, you can. But we don't need to tell them that here, Will.
Do I say thanks for listening, or do we not thank them for listening?
No, they don't deserve
They
us.
don't
No,
deserve
they
a
do.
thanks.
I think you leave with thanks for listening.
Oh yeah, I say thank you for listening to Practically Effective, don't I? Thank you for listening to Practically Effective. We upload our podcast on the SoundCloud and also on the YouTube.
And iTunes.
And iTunes, yeah, they do go on iTunes, don't they?
Someone actually listened to it through iTunes recently.
Really? How can you tell?
It's on the SoundCloud stats.
Oh yeah.
So it's RSS feed, isn't it? That means
Yeah.
it came through the iTunes.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, mysterious man
Give
or
us-
woman. Or
Give us a mad iTunes rating.
just
Yeah.
like us on SoundCloud. That's more useful. Give it click the little heart.
Yeah.
Follow us.
Click the little heart.
We have like 2 followers.
I think one of them isn't a robot.
We're on Facebook and we're also on Twitter at PracticallyFX. And you can email us, if you would like, at practicallyeffective@gmail.com.
Well, how do you think Chris got his movie talked about on Practically Effective, the world's greatest podcast about special effects? He emailed Will.
Oh, he did, yeah. But I also know his sister. So we could just talk her and she would have told me.
We don't need to tell them that. We have a fan who's not linked to us in any way.
That mysterious guy from Japan.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to our episodes.
Yeah. You're our favourite listener. Sorry to the people that Will knows.
Yeah, you suck. Why can't you be more like the Japanese guy?
And there's someone in France apparently listening to
Oh
it.
yeah, there's a couple of people. There's like a guy in France.
So thank you to our worldwide audience. Practically effective.
Merci.
Wee wee.
Yeah.
And to Japan, sayonara. That means thank you. I don't actually know what thank you is in Japanese.
Anyway,
We're sorry if we've just insulted all of your
insulted
countries.
every country.
Any other listeners that we should insult the countries of?
I think there's
America.
America. Burger.
Yeah, take that. We have such a dry wit, don't we? Thank you very much. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm just rambling now.
Okay, bye.